all the things I love in a book.
And like a simmering tension throughout it.
The only man I've ever loved looks at me like the last 20 years didn't happen.
Look at the sheer amount of tabs in this book. Hello, my book besties. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome here if you're new. So excited to be filming a reading vlog, my first in a hot minute. I love doing reading vlogs because I'm able to talk about the books that I love in the moment and just express my excitement about them. Normally I'm talking about that in past tense, and also my memory is horrible, so it gives me an opportunity to talk about the books I'm loving while it's fresh on my mind. If you're hearing noises in the background, I gave my kids balloons and sent them upstairs for a second, and they're having a blast, but it is quite loud. For this week's reading vlog, I really wanted to focus on books that I haven't heard a ton about. They haven't been on my For You page or on my Booktok, anything like that. And I'm really excited because one of the books that I'll be reading in this vlog is one of my most highly anticipated releases for the year. I really hope this microphone is doing its job because they're so loud. Also might do some book shopping during the course of this reading vlog, so really excited about that, but we'll see what we get to. The first book that I will be reading in this reading vlog is called 32 Days in May. Only person I've heard talk about this book is Brady Lockerbie. She's the one who originally got it on my radar. I thought it sounded really interesting when she was talking about it, and then I never heard about it from anybody again. I did pick up this book at my local library. I have already started this book, and so far I've really been enjoying it. It is about our two main characters, and they're both just a little disappointed with their lots in life for different reasons. Nadia has just recently been diagnosed with lupus, and it may or may not be getting worse. This is causing a lot of strain in her family relationships. They are not very happy with the choices that she's making and the way that she's dealing with it. Her rheumatologist ends up setting her up with his cousin, who just so happens to be a former actor who's been going through a pretty tough time after a very public exit from acting. The two of them go on a date, and they end up forming this arrangement where they agree to date for the entire month of May. And after that month is over, they're going to go their own separate ways and just not have any more expectations for each other. It's a very interesting concept for a story. What I like about it so far is that it's kind of marrying literary fiction and romance. I also feel like it's been a really, really good summer read so far. I'm really excited to see how this story pans out. I feel like I have an idea of how it will go, but I'm really interested to see how this author plays it out in the book. Now that my kids are down for a nap, I'm gonna have some time to read. I'm also gonna have some time to go to my local bookstore while they nap. I feel so fortunate that my husband works from home, and then while they go down for a nap, I normally sleep for about 2.5 hours, and that gives me some time to myself to just go and have some me time. I have about 160 pages left. It is a pretty short book, so I would be surprised if I don't finish it by the end of the day, or if not, by tomorrow. But I will check back in with you guys when I'm finished with the book and tell you exactly what I think about it.
One of my toxic traits is eating and reading, I will say. One thing that I really like about this book is the banter between the two main characters. It makes me wonder whether or not our male main character, Marco, is already falling for her, even though they were both very adamant about how this was going to be a no-strings thing just for a month. I just wanted to read this because this is a good, example of the way that they talk to each other and their personalities. I feel like this is a good example of how they talk to each other. He calls her in the middle of the night because he is out of town for a few days, and he calls her babe, and she's kind of taken aback for a second. She's like, "Don't you babe me?" And he goes, "Why? Afraid you might like it?" I feel like lines like these just make me giddy. I love reading them. He's constantly doing things like this, calling her little nicknames and telling her how beautiful that he thinks that she is, and it really makes you wonder if he isn't already just falling in love with her, maybe a little bit. I don't know. We'll see. I have to read on.
It is a beautiful night outside. The sun is about to set. The sky is so pretty, so I wanted to film outside. I ended up finishing 32 Days in May earlier today when my kids were napping. It was so good. It's really funny because as I started the book, I was thinking to myself, this book is really good, but I don't know if it's gonna stick out to me. I don't know if it's gonna be one of my favorites. But as the book went on, I just got more and more attached to the characters, to the storyline. It was seriously such a beautiful book, and I'm really, really excited to talk about it. Obviously, Nadia and Marco decided that they were only gonna date for the month of May, so for 30 days. As the relationship is progressing, obviously we're only getting Nadia's perspective. Marco's kind of acting like he's down bad. I think Nadia just keeps second guessing herself because Marco has an acting background, and she is also not understanding why he wants to be with her because he's gorgeous and he's famous and rich and she is not. So it's really interesting, like just listening to her inner conversations with herself, kind of second guessing how much he likes her. But as their relationship continues, they pretty much both telling each other after 2 or 3 weeks that they are kind of falling in love with each other. Even more than just one conversation about talking about how they might be falling in love with each other, Marco is just so good, has been so good since the beginning at complimenting her, saying his thoughts, saying exactly what he feels, and I love that. Like, I love that even though you're in Nadia's head, I wasn't really questioning whether or not Marco loved her or liked her because he was so good at just reassuring her, even when she didn't let him know that she needed to be reassured. Like, they'll be talking about their favorite things and he'll be like, oh, but it's not like my favorite thing, this favorite thing, it's not better than the time I get to spend with you. Or just like, I'm saying it so much cheesier, but he says it so much better. As they're kind of moving on in their relationship, they're avoiding talking about, or at least Nadia's avoiding talking about what's going to happen when it all ends. But she comes to just acknowledge that her feelings are so strong that, like, no matter what, she's happy it happened. I wanted to read this quote that I just loved in the book. It said, "Whether this entire saga ends with us looking at each other on the edge of this bed, or if everything ends in 10 days or 10 years, I would want to replay it all. I'd rewind over and over again, memorizing every moment, charting the course from where we started to where we are right now. So if ever I were to lose my way as profoundly as I lost myself back in November, I'd have a map back to this. Joy, a feeling intense and perilous and so deep and clear, I could drink it and never feel thirsty again." There were just so many really sweet paragraphs like this of just talking about the feelings of falling in love in the eye of a character who isn't sure if that's what it is yet. I just really, really, really enjoyed this book. You knew that eventually they were going to have to talk about Nadia's sickness. It was done very close to the end, and I loved how it was handled because Marco is obviously a recovering addict, and even though he's been amazing this whole time, that doesn't mean that he doesn't have fears. It doesn't mean that he's going to respond perfectly. But even though he responded very humanly and not perfectly, the way that he recovered from that, like, more than made up for it. And I am just obsessed with how this book ended, specifically the last chapter. Every romance writer should just take notes on how Eddie Corello ended this book. You finally figure out in the last chapter why it's called 32 Days in May, and it's just so freaking sweet. Like, Marco was so down bad for her, and I just loved every second of it. I don't want to spoil it, but you guys have to read this book. You have to read this book, and you have to go and you have to read it all the way to the end and read that last chapter, because that last chapter just cemented this book as just such an incredible book. I'm still kind of mulling it over, and I don't like to give ratings the same day that I finish a book just because I like to just sit and chew on it for a bit. But that was a 5-star ending. Like, it was a 5-star ending. It really was. So hard too, because in my mind, the first part of the book, I was thinking it wasn't perfection for me because I wasn't super obsessed from the first second, but it makes sense as to why those characters were acting the way that they did, and I just ended up loving this book. I love this book. Yesterday when I was at the bookstore, I ended up picking up my next read for this reading vlog. I am so excited about this book because the first installment in this duet was one of my favorite, if not my favorite reads of earlier this year, at least for romance, and I'm really excited because the next one just came out and I got a signed copy, and that book is Now to Forever by Ashley Manley. Ashley Manley is an indie author, and not enough people know about her, but I love her writing. I connect with it so much. If people ask me for book recommendations, one of her books is always on my list. So I'm really, really excited to start this book. I decided I wanted to go into this book kind of blind because I know that I love Ashley Manley's writing and I trust her writing. All I really know is that the main character in this book I was introduced to in Forever and Back, and her name is Scotty. And I believe the trope in this is brother's best friend, and I think that we're dealing with grief as well in this book. So I am very, very excited to read this book, and I cannot wait to just get into it. Guys, this book is seriously so good. I'm sure you can tell by how much I have annotated it so far. I'm just a little under halfway and I've already used so many tabs, it's not even funny. I feel like the main character in this book is definitely a lot more, maybe a little unhinged than in her other books. Scotty is just like a firecracker. I don't know how else to describe it, but there are more F words in this book than there were in all of her other books combined. But I feel like that is just Scotty's personality. Like, she just had a really rough life growing up. I feel like almost like everything that could have happened to her family happened to her family. She's reeling from the loss of her brother. Her brother passed away from an overdose, and then right after his overdose, her dad ended up passing away from driving while drunk. And then her mom just like never wanted to be a mom and just like has not been there for her at all. She pretty much has to take care of her mom, like pays for her mom's trailer every single month, fills her house with groceries. She just has had a really, really hard life, and I feel like everybody she loves has let her down. Even Ford, who is our male main character in this book, he used to be Scotty's brother's best friend, and shortly after the overdose, he just up and left. And Scotty has never forgiven him for that. They were pretty much the love of each other's lives. So she obviously has a lot of things that she is working through in this book. You can tell just from the way that she talks, especially the way that she reacts around Ford. She like wants nothing to do with him. There's definitely, on her side, you really feel like she hates him. And then on his side, he just takes it, and like whenever she makes fun of him or says mean things, he just like smiles at her and just takes it in stride, and you can just tell he has so much love for her. I'm absolutely obsessed with Ashley Manley's writing. I've already said this, but I'm not even done with the book, and I've tabbed it so much because there's just so many things that I want to remember the way that she wrote things. There are just so many things I want to remember. The way that she writes certain things just scratch an itch in my brain. I just want to give you guys a few examples. His eyes meet mine and hold, and it feels tangible. Like an actual rope forms between us that I could grip onto and pull myself towards him on. In our stare, an ache consumes me, the kind that hurts the roots of my hair and the ends of my teeth and the tips of my fingernails. The only man I've ever loved looks at me like the last 20 years didn't happen. As he drives away, my chest hurts, like each pump of my own heart is killing me. I won't show up, I can't, because I loved him once and he left, because I loved him once and my life fell apart after. But most importantly, because when I look at him, it's like none of those things matter. And as much as I want to be the person he thinks he sees when he looks at me, I'm not, probably never was. I don't know, I feel like her writing kind of reminds me of Jessa Hastings a little bit. Like, I know Jessa Hastings' writing is super distinct, and I think that Ashley Manley's is too, but I think just the feelings that I get when I read Jessa Hastings' writing, specifically like musings on feelings and emotions, that's how I feel when I read Ashley Manley, which is why I'm loving this book so far. I'm definitely gonna spend a good chunk of time today just finishing this book. I'm having a bit of a lazy day. However, later tonight, we are going to take our kids to the lake, and then tomorrow's 4th of July, and then just 4th of July weekend. So we'll see how much reading I get in. I'd be shook if I didn't finish it within the next day or two, even with how busy I'm gonna be with 4th of July and just all the activities that come with that. I don't even think I have to say much. Just look at the sheer amount of tabs in this book. Let me just say that my hair looks like it grew a foot overnight, and it's because I put my extensions in for the first time in a long time. But if there's something that Ashley Manley knows how to do, it's right, a male main character. Her male main characters are perfection. They are always so in love with the female main characters. Literally, if the female main character said jump, they would say how high. They are just so in love, and I love reading about men who will just do anything for the girls that they're in love with. There's a sense of found family that I absolutely loved in this book that was also in Forever and Back, and I just loved this book. So many heavy things, and this book actually moved me to tears at one point, and I am not somebody who cries during reads. Like, I just don't do it. I do that a lot with music, not a ton with books. And there was a part of this book towards the end that literally made me tear up. I absolutely loved the story. I loved where she took it. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil the ending. And I really think that Ashley Manley is an indie author that more people should be reading about. So I'm not going to spoil it, but this book was fantastic. Super obvious 5 stars for me, just super obvious 5 star. After I finished this book, I was kind of looking around on my shelves and I couldn't really find anything else that was really fitting the theme of this video, which is books that not a ton of other people have read or just that I haven't seen a lot on Booktok. So I ended up running into Barnes & Noble, which I don't normally head over to Barnes & Noble to actually shop. I like to go and I like to look, peruse, but then I end up normally shopping at my local bookstore. However, because I had some rewards, because I was having dinner right by this Barnes & Noble, I did end up going in and picking a book. I ended up picking This Monster of Mine. Hopefully I don't butcher the author's name, but it's by Shalini Abe-Sakara. I have stopped and looked at this book multiple times. The premise sounds super interesting. Just check Goodreads. It only has 2,220 ratings, which I feel like is not very much. When I was looking at my Goodreads TBR, when I ranked it in the number of ratings, the next one had like 45,000 ratings, so that's a big jump. So that's what ended up leading me to picking this one. While I was at Barnes & Noble, I did end up seeing another book that caught my eye just because of the cover art, and it's called Cruel is the Light, and that one only had 2,600 ratings, but this one, because it had less, I ended up going with this one. I do think eventually I'll read that one though. I heard that if you like the K-pop Demon Hunters movie, which I've been watching, it's so good. I know it's not for a 30-year-old woman, but I just love it. It's so good. But anyways, I think I saw somebody said that if you like that movie to read Cruel is the Light, that you would really enjoy it. So eventually I'll get around to reading it. But I'm really excited to start This Monster of Mine. This book is about our 18-year-old FMC. 4 years ago, somebody tried to kill her. She doesn't know who it was or why they did it. I'm just gonna read the back because it sounds so interesting and I don't want to butcher it. The tagline says, "She knows the taste of death. He'll stoke her hunger for it." 18-year-old Sarai doesn't know why someone tried to kill her 4 years ago, but she does know her case was closed without justice. Hellbent on vengeance, and now a petiter, that sounds more interesting to me. A prosecutor who can magically detect lies. She returns to the scene of the crime, assigned to work with Tetrarch Kadra. Ice cold and perennially sadistic, Kadra is the most vicious of the 4 judges who rule the land of Dinye, and the prime suspect in a string of deaths identical to Sarai's attempted murder. Certain of Kadra's guilt, Sarai begins a double life, solving cases with him by day and plotting his ruin by night. But Kadra is charming, and there's something alluring about the wrath he wields against the city's corruption. When she finds evidence that embroils her in a deadly political battle, Sarai must also fight her against her attraction to Kadra because despite his growing hold on her heart, his voice matches the only memory she has of her assailant. A dazzling ancient Rome-inspired romantasy debut, This Monster of Mine is a bloodbath of manipulation, deception, and forbidden love. All the things I love in a book. I feel like I've been reading so much summer romance lately that I've been wanting to read something fantasy. I just been really craving it, so I'm super excited to get into this book. My husband is out watching a movie with his sister, so I have some time tonight to read, and I will update you guys on what I think about it. We've got to talk about this book right here. So first of all, I did the same thing that I did earlier in this vlog and said, oh, I'm not going to finish this for like another day or something, and then proceeded to devour the book and finished it the same night again. This book was so good, and I don't even know where to start with it. First things first, what you all came for. This book is an actual true slow burn. The tension in this is
so good, and we don't even get a kiss till like the last fifth of this book. But again, like a simmering tension throughout it, which I absolutely love. I eat a slow burn up, and I love tension. I love yearning. Get both of those things in this book, which I really appreciated. First, let me say, after I bought this book, I saw on the back that it was labeled dark fantasy, and I got worried. When I hear dark fantasy, I start to think like weird, like unhinged things, and that was not the case in this book. Well, I feel like it's labeled a dark fantasy because of the intensity of some of these scenes, where specifically like the fight scenes, and then things like the playback of when she was almost unalived, and she talks about the way that her body looked after she fell off of this tower, which, spoiler alert, was really not great. And so I feel like that's why it was labeled a dark fantasy, and maybe I am just a person who didn't understand what a dark fantasy was, and I thought it was going to be like whips and chains kind of a thing. That's like literally what I was thinking, and that was not it. So I was very worried because obviously I bought this book and didn't look at that until after, but safe to say, I did actually really love this book. Kind of like I said before, it did take a bit to really understand this world and understand the language, but once I got into about 50 pages of it, I was hooked and I felt like I was understanding everything. It is one of those books that definitely requires more of a percentage of your brain power to read. It's definitely not a brain rot book or like an easy read per se, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't very compelling. Like I was still finding myself wanting to read more and more of this book. Anyways, now that I've finished the book, I feel like I can give a way better recap than I did earlier, obviously, but I just feel like now that I understand the world and I understand the language, basically our main character, Sarai, obviously I've already explained to you that someone tried to unalive her 4 years ago, and she's trying to figure out who. She feels like the best way that she can find out who tried to unalive her and why is by becoming a petiter, which is a person who can magically detect lies, and they are paired one-on-one with like one of the head judges, which are called tetrarchs. There are 4 main judges, and up until that point, she thought it was going to be years before she could apply to the academy to become a petiter because it was very expensive, and she was working as a barmaid and getting paid not very good. But for some reason, come to find out, petiters are in short supply because they're apparently all unaliving themselves randomly. In the capital, obviously the judges are trying to figure out what's happening, the people are trying to figure out what's happening, and a lot of people who've been training to be petiters no longer want to take the job because they don't want to end up deceased. You know what I'm saying? So she hears about this and she's like, well, I qualify, like I can do the basic runes to be able to, because it is a runic magic. You like take a drop of blood and put it on a specific rune on this like metal bangle that you wear, and then you are able to use different magics, and she is able to tell when people are lying and people aren't. So she ends up going to the capital city. All 4 tetrarchs are needing petiters, and it turns out that 4 petiters are available. One of the petiters, his name is Kadra. She ends up hearing not great things about him, that he's very bloodthirsty and vicious and just like doesn't have a great reputation. And of course, he ends up picking her through very interesting means, which I really would say read the book for that, because it's just, oh, I love that part when they get matched and things like that. Anyways, when she hears his voice triggers a memory because she can't remember much about the night she was almost unalived. It triggers memories, and she knows with some clarity that he has something to do with the night that she was unalived. And all signs are kind of pointing to maybe him being the one to do it and not just being an innocent bystander. So she's working closely with him, and it's very interesting that he even chose a petiter because he's never done that before. So she has the questions of like, why did he choose me? And as she's working with him, she is also kind of living a double life, trying to find dirt on him, trying to figure out what happened all those years ago, and also why her accident was covered up by the higher ups in the government. Everyone in the city refers to the girl who fell off the tower as the Sidron Tower Girl. Very creative, I know, because that's a tower that she was pushed off of. It was ruled as an unalivement, and she doesn't really know much about it. This is ending up to be a very long summary. But to kind of sum it up, something that I forgot to say is because of that fall from the tower, she is covered in tons of scars, and she uses a rune to cover them at all times. Because no one ever sees past her scars, and everyone back home treated her like crap because of them. As she works with Kadra, she is kind of realizing that he is not what everyone thought that he was. Like, yes, he's vicious, yes, he's bloodthirsty, but why are all the choices that he's making kind of making sense to her? Why does it seem like he's trying to protect the little guy versus trying to protect the rich, like a lot of the other tetrarchs do? She's having very conflicting feelings, and she's also developing an attraction towards him that she's really trying to fight, because she really doesn't know that much about him, and she doesn't know what his involvement was in her attempted unalivement. So there's just lots of things going on, like corrupt government officials, political intrigue, lots of mystery surrounding the Sidron Tower girl. All of this is happening while there's a simmering, budding tension between her and Tetrarch Kadra. So that is all I'm going to say about this book, specifically about the plot, because I don't want to give any spoilers away. And I also did research this book, and even though this had a very satisfying ending, it is supposed to be part of a duology, allegedly. So I will be eagerly awaiting the second installment in this duology. This was just so interesting to me. Like, the magic system, the world was so complex and compelling, and it's really what I've been craving that I didn't even know in a fantasy. Very different, very intelligently written. You can just definitely tell that this author is super intentional with everything she put in this book. And it literally says on the back, she enjoys uses fantasy as a mirror to interrogate both government policies and the bizarre workings of the business world. So, and that's exactly what this book did. I highly, highly recommend it. I'm still kind of chewing on a rating for this book, but I'm thinking it's probably going to be in the 4.5-star range. The only thing that detracted for me was the first 50 pages were really difficult for me to read and difficult for me to get into, but after that point I got hooked, and I think it's just learning a new world and different things like that. That wraps up this reading vlog really well, I feel like, of me reading books that I haven't heard a lot about. Do not forget where we started. We started with 32 Days in May, which I end up giving a 4 out of 5 stars. Really, really enjoyed that contemporary romance. I'm debating on whether or not I go buy a copy because I really enjoyed it. Then we moved into Now to Forever, which was one of my most highly anticipated books coming out this year. Loved this one, gave it a 5 stars, just gonna keep raving about it. And then we finished off with a really, really great fantasy. Overall, a really, really good week in reading. Let me know in the comments what your guys' week in reading looked like, what books you were reading, what books you liked, what books you didn't like. Let me know if you've read any of these books or have any lesser known books that you love that you feel like I should read. I did also just post my mid-year book tag if you want to see more of my favorite books that I've read this year. And if you enjoy this video, feel free to give it a like and subscribe and stay a while with me. I would absolutely love that. But that is all I have for you today, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!